weeks ago, a viewer wrote to me and said he owns a guitar, he doesn't know how to play it. And it made me reflect on when I was 14 years old, when I first started playing. I tried at the age of 12 to play, but I gave up within 2 weeks, which is incidentally, having talked to a lot of guitarists over the years, is often the period where you seem to give up because your fingertips start hurting immensely. You run out of patience. I urge you to keep at it. So I've been playing for 50 years, sadly with a hiatus of about 34 years due to family and business commitments. But I'm back. In the last 8 years, I've played almost 15,000 hours, getting up as early as 4:30 in the morning just to exercise my passion for this instrument. Right, the first thing I would do if I owned a guitar or had someone loan me a guitar, like my neighbor loaned me a guitar when I was 14, and I really never stopped for the next 8 years, teaching myself till this day. And thanks to YouTube, I've learned so much theory and so much practical and technical tips on this instrument. I'd love to share it with you. Check my channel out. You know what it is. So the first thing I do is learn how to strum. So you just do it, even if you can't play a chord, you do it like this: down, down, up, up, down, up, down, and you keep that perpetual motion. Now I'm just going to play a bar chord so that you can see what I'm doing. What a friend of mine taught me when I was 14, sitting on the edge of my bed. He was a rhythm guitarist for my first band I later joined when I replaced him. Shame he's passed away now, but he taught me this. He was a great rhythm guitarist, but he taught me this little trick where you do a bit of a bounce with your fretting out. Proud Mary. Now, 14, we used to accent that little jump so you can put some character into your strumming. The next thing I do is print off a chart of accounts off the internet. You maybe have a book of chords. You start with the cowboy chords, A to G. A, B, we'll ignore for now. Then C, the 3-finger version, D, E, and then the dreaded one, F. From memory, with that double stop on the first 2 strings, it took me about 3 months from memory to get the strength to hold that chord down. And then you move it into the bar shape. Incidentally, both those shapes are transportable right up the neck. And then the G chord. Now with the G chord, a good tip. Keep that D note there on the B string, 3rd fret. Keep it anchored. So when you're practicing, the third thing on the guitar, you're practicing these chord changes. Use 6 of the 7 cowboy chords, ignore the B for now, to practice your changes. Now, you see, when you're going from D to G, D is the 5th note of the G major scale, but don't worry about that. You know, you might have heard of progressions G, C, D, or A, D, E, C, F, G. They're called 1-4-5 progressions, and they're used in boogie. There's a 1 chord, there's a 4 chord, and there's a 5 chord. E, A, B, 1-4-5. Okay, that's what I'm talking about when I say 1-4-5. Those are the intervals of the major scale, but look at my channel. I've got a lot of theory on the on intervals and all these things. Okay, you know where to find me. So you practice changing between chords. Now key point here, guitar slightly out of tune by the way. Key point here with a D chord. Note that D note there on the B string, 3rd fret. When you play a G chord, make sure you keep that finger on the D note there, 3rd fret, 2nd string. Keep it anchored. Okay, so practice changing between the chords. That can take you a few weeks, depends on how much time you have. Incidentally, by the time when you're learning to play guitar, you should spend at least 1 hour a day. As you advance, that hour need not necessarily be consecutive minutes, 60 minutes. As long as you're concentrating on what you're doing. And when you play chords, get them as clean and clear, clean and clear as possible. Incidentally, when you're tuning a guitar, tune from the thin strings up to the thick strings, because the thin strings exert more tension on the neck, which is bowed naturally and should be bowed slightly. So especially in extreme hot and cold where the neck can bow. So you need to know some of the physical attributes of the guitar. A little bit of music theory is definite. Ignore people who tell you don't need to know music theory. I regret it, because at the age of 58, I discovered music theory. Ridiculous, eh? 44 years after I started playing guitar, even though I played in several successful dance bands, new wave bands, punk bands, rock bands, blues bands. So a reasonably good guitarist. I never knew any music theory. I regret it. At the age of 58, thanks to YouTube, there's millions of articles. I've spent over 3,000 to 5,000 hours on YouTube researching songs, researching technical aspects. Brilliant source of advice, regardless what the critics say. I have learned heaps. I can keep conversations with educated musicians. I might not be the world's best guitarist, but I know what I'm talking about. I've got a good brain, and I've made it my business to find out. By the way, on playing, I've worked very hard at this instrument the last 8 years, and running a business of my own. I've been getting up as early as 4:30 some mornings in temperatures of 2 degrees down in my cellar here, and without heating, just to play this instrument. I would just practice something like little loopable exercises. I know it's ridiculous, but you've got to get the hand-brain coordination going when you want to start soloing. But you're doing this, so now you're strumming the guitar, you're able to change the chords. You look up, there's a good site on the internet called Chordy, D-I-E, Chordy. You can look up millions or hundreds of thousands of songs, chords on there, and the words, and you can have some fun. So your practice should consist of technical aspects, theory, and repertoire. Playing songs, learning to play songs, learning the chords. And most importantly, always ask yourself why you're doing it. It's very addictive. It's because you're supposed to be having fun. When it's not fun, put it down, walk away, have a cup of coffee, go for a walk, do whatever you do. Come back to it. And on that score, when you walk away from the instrument, you will be astounded how you have improved. It's something you've been working on. And another key point I've mentioned in one of my videos, you can practice without this instrument in your hands. That little sequence, Paul Gilbert in 16-note sequence, and of course you speed it up to 148 beats a minute, and you'll see how awesome it sounds when you put the gain distortion on. You focus on what is needed to be achieved. I'm not going to try and show off, but give you that dexterity if you continue at it. I found I couldn't even remember the 16 notes initially, just 2 years ago. And I'm not that style of player, but I was astounded. After 18 months, I picked up the guitar and I was able to do it. Somewhere my subconscious had absorbed what I was trying to teach it for about 3 weeks. I just could not get that. This is the part I couldn't get. Paul reckons that's the difficult part. I have no problem doing that. You see, we're all different. That's where my problem is. So I just do it repeatedly. About a week ago, I just started going. Involves hammer-ons and pull-offs, which means I'm not picking every note. There's that little hammer-on. I couldn't do that a week ago, even though I can do a lot of things. We're all different. Find out what your weaknesses are, work into them. As I said earlier, check my channel out. I've got a lot of more interesting advanced lessons than this. And look how happy I am. This instrument is spiritual to me, and it will be to you as well. you'll make a lot of friends, and you'll look after your heart. Believe me, it's really fun. And good luck.